On today's show, what's going on with Caris LeVert, and what is the Cavs half-court offense like this year versus last year? We'll discuss all of that and more on today's show. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com. The promo code is LOCKED ON.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
The music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and NBA at large for places like Diamond UPROXX and SB Nation's Fear the Sword. That man over there in the glasses and the beanie is Evan Dammarel. This episode was as always, was produced by Jake Stevens. All right, Evan, let's. I want to hit on one more topic from Tuesday night's Cavs-Lakers game, because I was reading through some of the quotes from the post-game media availability and also the pre-game media availability with JB Bickerstaff. And I want to start with this Donovan Mitchell quote. He's like, quote, "It really hit me for like a full circle moment. I just kind of sat there and watched the reception LeBron James, got, and that's incredible. It's well-deserved. He's one of the greatest players of all time. Brought a championship, the only championship, to this franchise, and you always got to have respect and admiration for that. And hopefully we can do something similar." Evan, we can get too meta with these things. Like, we can read too much into these things. But the Cavs, like, going 2-0 against LeBron this year, winning the way they did, the MVP chance for Mitchell late in this game that felt very deserved and, like, of the moment and all this stuff. I feel like this is the healthiest this team has ever actually turned the page. This group has the potential to be. It's not there yet because they haven't accomplished anything, but this is the group that if you wanted to say, hey, they could move past this and accomplish something real, maybe not they're probably not going to go to 4 straight finals. Like, it's really hard to do that. Maybe it's really hard to do when you don't have someone like LeBron James on your team, like a close to prime LeBron James. But this is the group that if you were to almost bet on them something happening and them accomplishing something real that kind of establishes its own identity, like this last year's team building into this year's team is probably the strongest chance I think they've had, obviously, since 2003. And I don't feel like that's, hyperbole or anything.
No, I don't think it's hyperbole at all. It's funny because I asked Darius Garland about this leading into the season, and he's like, I don't think about it at all. Like, he had a very Don Draper-like moment where I asked, like, do you guys at least have it on the back of your mind that, like, hey, this could be the first time the Cavs make the playoffs without LeBron since the 97-98 season, which, for better or for worse, is when the majority of this roster, at least in terms of key talent, was even alive, which that just kind of puts into context how young this Cavs team is. But they are a special group. I think Jared Allen just being brutally honest with the media after Tuesday's win over the Lakers and just saying that, listen, JB could say it, Donovan could say it, Darius could say it, anyone can say it. Like, this is just another game for us. Like, that's the right mentality to have going into a game. And then I think after you win, you can maybe admit a little bit, like sheepishly, that yeah, this game did have some significance to it. Like, the Cavs have been trying to build desperately out of the shadow of LeBron James forever now. Like, they tried to do it once when he went to South Beach and built in spectacular fashion, even though they did have, like, an interesting enough young core of Kyrie, Dion, Tristan, guys like Alonzo G as well on the roster, too. Just shouts out to Alonzo G, too, and, like, Varejao and such, but LeBron kind of came in, and the Cavs had to make dramatic sweeping moves to go get Kevin Love, and then they eventually moved on from fighter pilot David Blatt and brought in Ty Lue in his place. And then after he left the second time, the Cavs were kind of in ruins, and they're in shambles. Like, Larry Drew wasn't fully committed to coaching this team. A lot of the veterans that were still there and kind of bitter that LeBron had left them. At least you could tell, like, Kyle Korver had a clause in his contract, at least a verbal clause in his contract that said, like, he would be traded in the event LeBron left. Like, it's just a harsh reality of the situation when you're so used to winning and being in a winning situation and maybe seeing your friends, peers, colleagues, etc. winning. It's tough. So to see the Cavs kind of turn the corner, and like they're already in the advent of doing that last season and probably heading into this season as well, but maybe not to this degree now where things are heightened quite a bit because of Donovan Mitchell, and just the expectations also are heightened because of Donovan Mitchell. On top of already like pretty high expectations heading into this season. So yeah, this was a feel good win for the Cavs. Like this is one where they can look back on and say like, hey, not only did we beat LeBron and not like kind of feed into the hype like they did last season, where LeBron just kind of played with them for the entire second half when he was in Cleveland, but this was a good win for Cleveland, and just like one of those ones where they can put a feather in their cap and say like, yeah, we got the proverbial monkey off our back, and we're now able to kind of move past that. This team is more than just, you know, LeBron James, and just at least in recent history, more than just what LeBron has built and established for this organization.
Yeah, I think for me more specifically though, I think it's just the fact that this is like we're heading towards the end of an era to some degree, right? Like that's just where this is headed. Here are the players that were alive, like had been born when the Cavs made the playoffs without LeBron. Here's the list of the current roster: Ricky Rubio, Dylan Windler, Mamadi Diakite, Howell Neto, Dean Wade, Robin Lopez, Caris LeVert, Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Love, and Cedi Osman. Jared Allen was born in 1998, so you have to check the dates, but like that's like a big chunk of the roster. But like Donovan Mitchell was born in 96. He's 2 years old. You know, Evan Mobley was born in 2001. Evan Mobley was born like just a few months before 9/11. Okay, like this is how young this group is in a lot of ways. Like it is a very nascent group. Like and as LeBron gets to 40 and all of this, it changes. And like he becomes something different. He represents something different, and like more than just like the fact that the win matters, more than the fact that like it's a statement when it means something. Like that's just where my head goes, because like you're just not going to get many more LeBron James games playing at Rocket Mortgage Field. You're just not. There's a couple left, and that's it.
Yeah, there's a couple left. Maybe he does like a one-day retirement thing, and like that's his final send-off with the Cavs in general, which I think that's the way his career would probably end at the end of the day. But I think you'll still feel the effects lingering even after the fact when LeBron's just like finally hung it up, and that's hard to believe like that we're probably going to be facing that reality soon enough. But like JB Bickerstaff said pre-game that LeBron may not be here anymore, but the impact that he has made in building the Cavaliers into a championship caliber organization, because not just they won a championship in the last 6 years, but more so the fact that the Cavs and more so LeBron kind of built like what the new expectation is, what the standard is, and like forced a lot of these younger Cavaliers to grow up when he first came back the second time around. And it's just interesting to see that like there are small pieces placed around the organization that like you can say like, yeah, LeBron had an impact on that. And to be frank, Chris and I probably will both say that like LeBron is the greatest player of all time in our opinion. Like Kevin Love said he's either 1A or 1B with Michael Jordan. Like it's not very often you can say that the team you covered had arguably the greatest player of his generation in tow for such a long time, and he's so monumental for the success of this team. But like LeBron sowed the seeds, and we're now seeing the growth of what he kind of built here, and we're now seeing the continuation of maybe what he built into a newer generation where this Cavs team, and again, I guess I didn't expect 10 players to be alive when the Cavs last made the playoffs, but still, there's core guys like Garland, Okoro, Allen is, I guess, a technicality, Mobley for sure, like guys like that are going to be kind of like those building blocks that the Cavs used to kind of get out of this rebuild post LeBron. It's just fascinating to think about. Like,
but none of them were even probably watching it. Like, was Kevin Love like crushing a Sean Kemp Cavs game in 1998? Probably not.
No, you know what I mean? He's probably a Lakers or a Blazers fan, as most kids probably were in the 90s.
Yeah, and he's from Portland. Yeah, but like
this is just regionally, but like the Lakers in general.
Yeah, it's just a very interesting, and look, it's one of those things where and Bickers have talked about this pregame. You mentioned the footsteps thing. I would love to know, just like you'll never get like a full honest answer about some of this stuff, but I would love to have like a candid conversation with like Darius Garland, who is one of the guys who maybe is the most publicly one to say like, hey, like I want to win without him forming our own thing. And like he's the one who went out into his way to say that. like when he looks out in the arena and there's like a ton of LeBron jerseys, right? And like what that signifies and like what that still represents and just what kind of that means. All right, after the break, we're gonna come back. We're gonna move on to going into Caris LeVert. What is up with him? His recent struggles, how he's kind of into a funk. But first, Evan's got a word from a sponsor.
Yes, I do. Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by PrizePicks. To play, pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people, it's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college hoops, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Eurobasket, cricket, and I have to cut this list short, but there's plenty more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, and they offer safe and fast withdrawals. PrizePicks is currently operational in over 30 states and the great country of Canada. So if you're interested, go download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Do not forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. Again, it's PrizePicks, and use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a little extra Skrilla for your holiday Thrilla.
All right, back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast, Chris Manning and Evan Dammarel here. Evan, what have you made of Caris LeVert of late? Where are you at with how he has played in his recent stretch of performances since coming back from the ankle sprain?
I said this on yesterday's show. Shouts to JB Bickerstaff for realizing that the fit between LeVert, Mitchell, and Garland just isn't functional on defense, and also kind of mitigates LeVert's impact on offense. But I still think you're seeing LeVert struggle a little bit. I wonder if he is still 100% physically. Like, I know heading into the season, it's like keto Caris. He's the best shape of his life. It's a lot of stuff players say at the beginning of the season. They're saying they're in the best shape of their life. So take that with a grain of salt, of course. But I think he's still getting acclimated, but if you're the Cavs, and I noted this last night during the game, like the Lakers bench, which mind you has Russell Westbrook on, who's had a bit of a resurgence as a six-man for the Lakers, but the Lakers bench outworked the Cavs quite a bit, and Kevin Love, it was reported by Chris Fedor, and I confirmed it myself, like went out of the game due to he just wasn't feeling well, and I think maybe it's just the flu bug that's hitting the NBA in general. I don't know. We'll see how bad it is when the injury report for Friday's game against Sacramento comes out, but other than Love, maybe Osman, like you don't have a lot of scoring options if LeVert's just not giving it to you, because the whole point of him going to the bench was to be more of a scoring threat and to have more opportunities with the ball in his hands and have his number called if he's playing next to Mitchell or Garland. So I'm not willing to like throw out Caris LeVert like the baby before the bathwater situation. Just I want to see what it looks like when Ricky Rubio's back. Maybe having just like a true playmaker playing in tandem with LeVert helps a lot. And I wonder maybe how much Rubio actually plays now that Donovan Mitchell working as a point guard has been so functional for the Cavs and works so well. But it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Like his shooting numbers have been pretty bad. Like I saw the shot chart where like he's 0 for almost everywhere on the floor. And sure, the passing helps, the ball handling helps, the bigger size helps too if you want to kind of get some funky stuff lineup-wise. But like if he's not giving you scoring, which is what his primary skill set is for this Cavs team, like you got to look elsewhere. Maybe you use him as a trade chip, or maybe you give minutes to somebody else. It's just the problem is Cleveland's so banged up right now that they really can't cede LeVert's minutes to somebody else right now.
LeVert is in a spot where like his role is just different, and I don't totally know like what to make of that for him, and like he just seems uncomfortable, and like he feels to me like he's still searching for kind of what his optimal sort of fit is.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I think, a need for his ball handling and his ability to get downhill and some of that stuff, but like I think Rubio will provide that with better defense when he returns, assuming Rubio's healthy. And like LeVert has not played well in a while. Since that 41-point game against Boston, he's had only 2 20-plus games since then. Think about how long ago that was. He has not put up a ton of scoring. He had the 8 of 11 game against the 76ers, but he's had a lot of nights of shooting under 40% and sometimes under 30%. And like this is with him, Evan, on the year, 35.4% of catch and shoot threes, 2.3 attempts per game. For him, that's like a really good number historically. His usage is down, like his usage at 21.3%, which is still like relatively high for a wing, but it's well below like where his sort of peak years were in Brooklyn and the little bit of time he spent in Indiana. He is not like he's being put into a different role that fits this roster. And it just doesn't, like, there's something just missing in what he's able to do. And and I think defensively, he's holding up better. Maybe that changes it. Maybe the ankle's kind of like a nagging thing, but that's kind of like the long-term, one of the concerns with him as far as he ages and getting him was the injury stuff. It's always kind of had some injuries dating back to when he comes into the league, and there's the knee issues. I don't think he's like a necessarily like a quote-unquote like bad player. I think his fit here is very weird. I also this is the spot in the rotation that I am most, if I'm Cleveland, just kind of like staring at it being like, okay, if we get a guy who could stretch us out a little more, maybe handles the ball a little bit less, but still could attack closeouts and things, but can really stretch it and can just like be competent, a little more competent than the other end. Just like you get like someone that fits that more 3-and-D mold a little better, even if it's not an A+ guy, you're not going to get that A+ guy. That this is the spot in the rotation that I'm staring at, and just I have a lot of questions about, just based on how he's played and what he is and how he has and has not shifted into what he's been asked to do this year.
I mean, understandably so, and you understand the optics a little bit now that Cleveland wasn't really pressed rather to sign LeVert to an extension this offseason after the lip service was out there that LeVert wanted to sign an extension almost immediately at Cleveland. Like, the fit just is a little clunky, I agree. Like, yeah, his catch and shoot numbers are a lot better. I agree with you that the ball handling or the need from his ball handling is kind of mitigated now that you have Mitchell here, but also you're bringing back Ricky Rubio, and you have Darius Garland as well, who is your franchise point guard and like your best ball handler on this roster too. Like, and then you have Evan Mobley doing some funky stuff too if he tightens up his handle as well. Like, that's some interesting things too. Like, the Cavs may have just enough ball handling where they're like, okay, we didn't extend Caris because we wanted to have more of an honest sample size where he's at as a player. Like you said, he did have that 41-point game, but it's been kind of small blips on the radar in the past month since then. Like, yeah, he just hasn't had noteworthy games, and I think this isn't a detriment to Caris LeVert or a slight at Dean Wade or Lamar Stevens, but like LeVert got benched because he just isn't functional as well as a defender next to Mitchell and Garland, who were clearly going to start for this Cavs team. And you kind of need a specific need with this team now, where if you're able to provide 3-point shooting or perimeter defense, because you have the interior locked down with Mobley and Allen or one of those two, you have plenty of ball handling to go around between Mitchell, Garland, eventually Rubio as well. And like, maybe you just need more 3-and-D stuff, or maybe you just need more 3-point shooting because you're leaning more on Lamar Stevens or Isaac Okoro if he's dealing with foul trouble too. So like, I wonder if the Cavs will just kind of quietly evaluate this situation with LeVert, maybe hope he turns it around and kind of like up his trade value. But I do think in my heart of hearts, as a week from today, the trade market's really going to start opening up because guys that signed extensions or contracts this summer are trade eligible. Like, the Cavs could start exploring the market to see like, hey, maybe it's Doug McDermott, maybe it's Josh Richardson, Eric Gordon as well. Like, there are players on some pretty bad teams this year that make a lot more sense just with how this Cavs team is currently constructed, because I agree, like, LeVert's role is just a little bit muddy right now, and I think it made more sense to an extent when it wasn't involving Donovan Mitchell on this roster. But now that Mitchell's here, you don't need LeVert as much as you did last season when you lost Rubio and you lost Sexton, because Donovan freaking Mitchell's an MVP caliber candidate and player at this point. So you don't need a lot. Like, yes, he'll gladly take what LeVert has, but you might need more of what other players can provide you instead.
And he's not giving you enough. Like, he's just not.
Yeah.
And like,
that's what I said. Like, if he's not giving you scoring, like, yes, the ball handling is great, and there's like times he connects really well with some of the players on the floor and like makes the smart pass, but when you're bringing in Caris LeVert and you want him to be like your quote-unquote 6th man or 7th man, depending on how you feel about Kevin Love at this juncture, like, you need to get a scoring punch from him. And the Cavs can't be overly reliant on just like their core 4 players, because they're going to burn them out. And by the time the playoffs get here, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen are going to be just beyond fatigued.
So for the year, they are positive when he's on the floor. Offense is solid enough. Defense has been very good. It's it's fine. The Garland, Mitchell, LeVert, Mobley Allen lineup is like about even. It's not great. It's got bad offense. The lineup with him that works is Mitchell, LeVert, Wade, Mobley Allen. So like when he's not playing with, he makes more sense to me on paper when he's not playing with both of the guys. The other thing I will note is that like his mid-range stuff just it's still in like a career. It's like he's in a pit in terms of his mid-range right now. So he's only making 24% of his shots in the mid-range. This is a guy who likes to go to the pull-up, who is taking fewer mid-range shots as part of his diet this year, but still 34% of his shots are mid-range. And he's just not making them. And like whatever reason that is, if it's just a bad luck thing, if it's like he's just having trouble getting the shot, if whatever the issue is, the Cavs, I would guess they have a take on how fixable that is. But that is where you look and say, okay, why is he not scoring well? Why is he struggling? And he's just not making the mid-range shots that are a pretty big part of what he does. We'll see if that rebounds. We'll see what they do with him. We have Evan is right that December 15th is the day the trade market theoretically starts getting interesting, but we have 2 months till the deadline. We'll see. We'll be tracking this, obviously, as we go along. All right, one more break. We're going to come back. We are going to dive into the Cavs half-court offense, but first, tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info and stats, news, and analysis this season and all season. Get the latest odds, trends, and everything else for every professional amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, they've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They are the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. For instance, they will have lines up this weekend for Cavs Kings and Cavs Thunder, a very interesting home back-to-back for Cleveland on the weekend. And they'll have some game props for those as well. They have the Browns right now as 6-point underdogs against the Bengals for Sunday's game at Cincinnati, if that is more your speed. And they have NBA awards, they have props, they have team futures, they have everything you could want. UFC 282s this weekend as well, if you're more into everything else. And if you're into future bets instead of game bets, you can find, again, anything there. Remember, that's BetOnline. That's where the game starts. Okay, last segment, Lockdown Cavs. Evan, I'm going to hit you with a few numbers here, okay? And we'll dive into the Cavs half-court offense. I was thinking about this last week, and I've come away just thinking about their philosophy in offense and how they don't play very fast and how they're really predicated on the half-court stuff. So the Cavs are in 8th. They're 10th in half-court offense this year. They're scoring 98.1 points per 100 possessions. Last year, they were 20th at 94.1. They're playing in the half-court a lot. They run the third highest percentage of their sets against a set defense in the half-court. Last year, they were right around league average. This year, they are down in the bottom with guys like the teams like Dallas, who have Luka Doncic, who all he wants to do is get the ball and play in the half court and play methodical and slow. The 76ers, who have Embiid and James Harden. The Celtics, who have Tatum and Brown. What they are doing, to me, feels like a choice. It is something of a shift from what they were last year. When this team has jolts of speed, it is often Evan Mobley gets a rebound and goes full court and generates something like that often, or it's a steal. Like, it's one of those two things, more often than not. So, Evan, before we get into sort of Mitchell and Garland and their on-off stuff and sort of what those numbers say and the take I have coming out of that, what do you just think of this shift to Cleveland being just a more half-court dependent offense versus what we saw last year?
I mean, it's predicated on their strengths at the end of the day. I think that adding Donovan Mitchell certainly does change the chemistry and dichotomy of this Cavs team offensively, but Jared Allen is the most consistent guy, but out of the core 4 players for the Cavs in terms of just scoring and defense and rebounding. So but he's very reliant on Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell giving him the ball, and I think that's a lot of pick and roll stuff. I think that's running a lot of half court sets. I mean, yes, there's fast break opportunities where you have a streaking Allen who's just getting off a block or something like that, or just kind of playing to the strengths of that regard. And then there's also like Evan Mobley, who is starting to set harder screens. Like, you notice it at times, like he's playing a little bit more physically. He's trying to create more space and separation for the primary ball handler, whether that's Mitchell or Garland, at the top of the perimeter. And then you're seeing a lot of interesting stuff too. And it's just also the fact that the Cavs are utilizing Evan Mobley more as an offensive hub, where you're seeing him at the top of the key, working with Mitchell and Garland off the ball. You see a lot of Jetty Osman or Isaac Okoro streaking along the baseline. You also see the Cavs run a lot of smart sets where like Jared Allen like kind of curls up and flares up towards the free throw line, and then you see him get the ball dumped to him, and he just gets a quick, easy floater, a nice bunny like that. Like the Cavs are finding a lot of smart ways to get cleaner looks in the paint because, in theory, at least, it is clunky to have 2 7-footers that are very reliant on scoring at the basket in today's NBA. But the Cavs are kind of finding ways to buck the conventional and make their own destiny with how they function as an offensive unit. And no, I'm not surprised by the increase in the half court sets. And honestly, man, if the Cavs are very comfortable in the half court, that's a very good thing when the playoffs come around, because that is when the offenses become very, very, very much slower, and they are very much predicated in running functional half court sets on either end of the floor. So if Cleveland's comfortable defending them because they're seeing them so much in practice, and also they're comfortable running them, that's a good thing to level up with when they kind of have to game plan and pigeonhole for an opponent in a best of 7 series.
So that's the thing. That is part of as much as the Jared Allen injury was a problem, all of that stuff. One of the big issues last year was just like they get to the end of the season and like it's Darius Garland having to run a ton of half court stuff, and like that just wasn't sustainable. That wasn't work. The offense largely just kind of cratered. You have to, like, Mitchell is like fixing that, and what I think is interesting is I would still feel optimistic about this improving. So you go into some of the lineup data. Mitchell with lineups with Mitchell in the half court. 96.4%, 96.4 offensive rating. Garland has lineups with Garland 97.5. Mitchell on, Garland off. Is that Garland on, Mitchell off is 101.4. So like they are a little better, not much, but they're a tiny bit better not together. They are a tiny bit better still. I think this is still a duo that is learning how to play together. Like, I think little adjustments you're seeing where it's like Mitchell screening for Garland and creating some different looks is going to juice things. I think there's obviously a need for more spacing. That could really just kind of alleviate some things and take this offense up another level. Mitchell's shooting just like, at one point he was like at like 48% on pull-up threes. Like, that's obviously probably not going to hold. And like you're going to have kind of a bounce back from that. What does that kind of have an impact on how this all functions? I just kind of still think, Evan, that this group is better in large part because of Mitchell and how well he's played. Garland has also, I think, played really well, and Garland has, I think, kind of reverted back to sort of some more passing-focused stuff that has, I think, been really good. We've seen that, I think, from the get-go, and I think his ability to kind of be the guy moving the chess pieces around, so to speak, has really been important. What I also think is that, like, when you get to... I want to revisit this in, like, March or February, right? Because I think this is going to still improve, and I think those two guys, when those two guys fully get in sync, and that all gets figured out, maybe there's a trade to be made, maybe like they find some stuff that works, maybe they're just healthy, maybe Rubio is a big deal for this as well, because of how, and he comes back and hits the ground running. I think this should get better. I think want to see it in the playoffs before we crown this as like a really good achievement in a masterful half-court offense. Like, we just saw them really struggle to play in the half-court against Toronto. Like, that was not that long ago. But I think it should get better, and I think it's just because, like, these guys... to me, it is because Mitchell and Garland will get better at playing together. They have not quite figured it out fully yet. It's been good. It's been very good. It's not all the way there yet, but I think it will just keep getting better and better and better.
I agree with that assessment. I think it will get better, better, and better. And honestly, at this juncture, like we talked about this, or you asked me this rather on Wednesday show, like, am I surprised that this Cavs team is a little bit more functional offensively? I think just that's the luxury of these injuries, is like you're forcing the Cavs to get comfortable with Donovan Mitchell a lot faster, and
he's also just been willing to. He's just been willing to do. Like, he's just been willing to say, "Hey,
very comfortable.
Like,
he's very comfortable functioning
shit
within like what the Cavs want him to do, and in turn, the Cavs kind of give him a lot of a leash and a lot of leeway to like do what he wants to do in freelance at times too. And it's an interesting way they're going about things, and it's been effective. Like, they have just a very solid foundation to build off of, and like Chris said, like that game against Toronto is a pretty good indicator of like pressure points, or even like either game against Milwaukee when they were in Milwaukee. Like, those are pressure points that opponents kind of hit where the Cavs were still a little bit uncomfortable, and they showed a little bit of their youth and inexperience at times, and also just like very smart defensive teams do find ways to exploit mismatches. And again, I mean, the Lakers just maybe aren't the best opponent to look at this, but like the Lakers are a very half-court heavy team when you have LeBron James on your roster. LeBron loves to slow things down and let the offense just kind of flow, and then he'll find the ideal pass. Or, you know, with Westbrook, it's the same way too. So it's the Cavs are in a good spot. I think they're much further ahead of schedule than maybe I have expected. There's way less growing pains than maybe I have expected, but it's still going to show up as, like you said, against the Raptors, and then, like I said, against the Bucks. And I'm interested to see how the Cavs handle Milwaukee towards the end of the month when we get closer to Christmas.
Yeah, and then I think every game against Toronto will be interesting. And look, right now they have the 10th best offense in the league overall, according to Cleaning the Glass. They are like at 114.12 offensive rating. They're like up over a point above league average right now. They are like worlds away from like Boston, who has like just like an absurd lead. Like they're up by like almost over 3 points on the second best offense league right now. Boston's offense is playing just tremendously. Phoenix is really good. Denver's really good. Utah is fourth, which remains absolutely hilarious. We will see the Kings, by the way, fifth will be a fun test for Cleveland on Friday. We'll talk about that more in tomorrow's show. But like there is still growth here, and I'm curious to see where they end up. This is like a team last year, to wrap this up, that I think we felt like the offense was just like, it needed to just be good enough to get them through. This year, if you want to get to where you're going, the offense, I think, has to keep improving and like be a legit kind of top 10-ish unit to pair with like a defense that is currently second and has been in that 2 to 4 range and 1 range for most of the season. So it'll be fun. I'm curious to see if they speed it up a little bit as well. Like, and when what Rubio provides will be interesting, but we'll have more on that as we go along. But Evan, let's end there. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens, who is on a yacht on Lake Erie, I'm sure, at this point, as he's editing this, because he's just, hanging out. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarel. We'll be back tomorrow to get you ready for the Cavs weekend slate. Cavs Kings Friday, the return of Mike Brown. We're going to do a little Cavs coach all-time ranking with Mike Brown coming back into town. Cavs Thunder on Saturday, and then we'll have a recap up after Cavs Kings because we didn't do an episode on Tuesday. But I'm Chris. That's Evan. Everyone, be well, stay warm, be good.